You tell us about Devil's Workshop and your character in the film.
So, Devil's Workshop is a movie about an actor who has been struggling for a really long time. He's never really gotten any roles, and he gets a callback to play a demonologist in a movie. He auditions on a Friday, the callback's on a Monday, and so he decides to contact a real demonologist. I play the rival actor that he's trying to get the edge on, who's this annoying guy who's constantly been working. And the other actor, played by Tim Granaderos, who has the callback as well, he's he's the same age, he's mid-30s, and he's never really gotten roles, and he's very frustrated with his position in the industry. So he decides he's going to go to a real demonologist, do the real Neil Day Lewis research on demonology, and take it from there. And it doesn't quite go according to plan for him by engaging with this real demonologist played by Rhoda Mitchell, who's got some darker, sinister sides, as you might imagine with a demonologist.
Yeah, you've done it all throughout your career. What was it about Donald and this particular script that stood out to you?
I thought it would be fun to play a comedic riff on an actor. I don't think I've played many actors before, or maybe any, to be honest. And doing the kind of really sinister send up of the worst actor possible was pretty entertaining. And I had to do a lot less research than I thought. I didn't do, I mean, it was funny. It came so naturally to me. And I realized I've been acting for so long now that, I've just been around. I mean, I don't need to do any research. I've been researching it for 27 years.
In the film, we see the lengths that Tim's character is willing to go to get a role. What's the craziest thing that you've ever done for an audition or preparation for a role?
I remember there was a movie for Nirvana that was the director was meeting people. Can't remember the director's name, but I don't think they made the film. But I remember I showed up to the audition wearing this ridiculous platinum blonde wig. Um, it was so ridiculous. Uh, and I remember the director afterwards. I remember thinking about it like a while later and being like, God, he must have thought that was so weird. Like, because it didn't look real. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
looked like ridiculous. It looked like a Halloween blonde wig. I mean, it was super. And I might have even have had like a little bit of a beard at the time. I mean, it was really ridiculous,
Love
which is like a
that.
totally darker color.
uh, like you were saying earlier, Donald is unabashful about the fact that he may not be the most talented actor, but he knows how to market himself. Having been a part of this industry for over 2 decades, have you encountered many Donalds along your journey? Did you shape those encounters for your performance?
I've definitely encountered a lot of actors that have qualities of Donald. I don't know if I've encountered any one Donald. Um, and I think I probably unconsciously incorporated a lot of those qualities. Um, I don't know. There was something so shameless about the character where he admits, oh,
Yeah.
he's not a real actor. I'm not an artist. And then he makes all of his money from social media. I don't know. There was something funny about an actor that's just so quickly to say that they're not a serious actor. It's
Mhm.
just something funny about it, especially when they're the more successful actor than the struggling actor who isn't even getting the jobs. The guy's saying he's not a serious actor, but yet he's the one getting the jobs. It's almost even more annoying.
Yeah.
And just the idea of Donald getting this impromptu idea of he's going to do this like exorcism seance with these girls that he's hanging
Yeah.
out with as he's doing drugs and partying and drinking, and that will be his research. And his research is like non-research. It basically is like terrorizing these two women, and it's totally ridiculous. But there's a little twist to some of those sequences which I thought were very funny, and kind of there's a certain amount of comeuppance that the character got, which I found the was the right kind of penalty. But even then, I'm not sure if you've seen that scene, but the ending of that scene is even more ridiculous because Donald has a trial and tribulation, and he just Then he thinks, oh, this will be the thing that makes my performance really good. It's there's a lot of layers of ridiculousness there.
Yeah, perfect segue to this next question. But this role finds you flexing both your comedic and dramatic skills. There's a scene where Donald and Clayton are performing an acting exercise. How much of that was improvised and how much of that was scripted?
Um, it was pretty scripted. I mean, the words of the back and forth, we definitely were riffing, and I was just trying to, I figured Donald is a guy who's trying to get under this character Clayton's skin. So it's like, what would he say to Clayton, who's this insecure guy, that would probably tick him off the most? Because Donald knows that Clayton feels inferior around him. So, well, if he calls him stupid, that's the biggest insult of all. He's, uh, you know, and the irony is that, Clayton is much smarter than Donald in a lot of ways. Donald is not smart.
On the flip side of that, there's this intense confrontation, like you were saying, with Nikki, Donald, and Petra that gets very heated and it has comedic undertones as well. Is the preparation different when you're preparing for a scene like that as opposed to that acting exercise?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very challenging scene for me to shoot, because it was so much dialogue. It was like that scene's like it was a 12 pages of dialogue.
Oh, wow.
And I actually was working on another project while I needed to shoot that scene. So I shot that scene on like a Saturday, right? And I did not physically have the time to learn 12 pages. I just did not have the time. Um, so it was a huge challenge to learn and react and be in the moment. It took all my mental powers, to get right in there and do that like that. Um, and it was weird because we were feeding off of each other in that scene,
Mhm.
and he's serious in the scene, but as he's screaming and yelling, he's saying, oh, I'm getting into character, I need to prepare for this part, which is inherently ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's making something serious out of something that just isn't really serious. I mean, he doesn't even have the part. All he has is a callback, and he's yelling at these girls, and he's putting this girl through this sort of demented emotional therapy, kind of similar to almost like a scene out of The Master or something, with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix. This mental exercise, purging, torture type of activity, and he doesn't even have the role. I mean, it's like, it's very ridiculous. I mean, when you really are examining it, it's ridiculous, and he's a very selfish, um, uncaring guy. You know.
Christopher wrote and directed this project. Is the film experience different when you're the person who created this universe is also at the helm as a director? What is that collaboration like?
It was cool. Chris is a guy who is very pragmatic and very methodical. And I feel like he really, takes his time and has a good vision and is patient with performance. He likes to do, multiple takes and really mine for the gold, which is a really cool quality to have, especially on an indie where you have to shoot at such a quick pace. To be with a director who likes the style of multiple takes and really not just rushing to get it in the can and move on to the next shot. It's cool because a lot of the times when you make some of these smaller films, just due to the constraints of the schedule, you have to move on very quickly. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're getting like two takes. So to work with a guy like Chris will sometimes do 5 or 6 takes. It's nice because you really feel like he's gonna get the right moment that he wants.
Definitely. I got one final question for you, and it's a perfect segue off that one. But you've worked on projects of all sizes. What is it about independent filmmaking that excites you as a creative?
Well, there's definitely a part of it where there's less corporate pressure in a way. There's so you're making it and you really do feel very relaxed. I think sometimes with certain studio projects, if you try something or if you veer off the path too much, there's a board of executives that report directly to the shareholders, and they're like looking at the ticker tape of the stock of the company, and that's really what they ultimately have in mind. It's the influence of the commerce and literally the stock of a company affects from the top down, the creative process. And anytime you have funding for a film that's coming from a source like that, uh whether it's a studio or independent or a network or streaming platform, there's always going to be a certain amount of influence in that way, which is fine. And actually, I find that sometimes the studios and executives and producers can help actually balance out the instincts of a filmmaker to a certain degree. People
Mm,
kind of like hate on the studios for their creative input a lot. I actually kind of think the studios have saved a lot of filmmakers from like just fully, going off the deep end multiple times. There's probably a lot more of that out there than people realize, and I feel like a lot of the times it's easy to gang up on the studio creatives or something like that. Just because it seems like the cooler, like the indie artist is like, he's sticking to his vision and he's sticking it to the studio. But there are probably a lot of pretty good examples of the studio becoming involved and making a film that the audience likes a heck of a
mm.
lot more.